Welcome to the Mind Body Business Show. The 3 keys to your success is just moments away. Here's your host, Brian Kelly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mind Body Business Show. I am so excited for this evening because of our amazing special guest expert, Joe Nunziata, who is coming on very, very soon. I promise I'm going to stop blabbing real soon and bring him on. Real quick, the Mind Body Business Show, for those of you that might not be familiar, in my life on this planet, I started studying successful people. And what I found over the course of many years is that 3 things kept coming up, 3 patterns, that all successful people seem to have this trait or these traits. And you might guess what those 3 are. It's the name of this show, Mind Body Business. So mind, meaning a very powerful, rock solid, and flexible mindset. And body, that is about taking care of yourself. They take care of themselves phenomenally well. They put in the proper nutrition and they exercise regularly. And then business is multifaceted. There's sales, marketing, systematizing, scaling, delegating, leadership. It goes on and on. The good news with business is in order to master business, you personally don't have to master every one of those facets. All you have to do is get good at delegating to those who do have those talents. But all these people that I studied and followed, some living, some that weren't, that I would read books, others that I knew personally, they all had these 3, what I call pillars of success. And that is mind, body, and business. And they've mastered all 3 of those areas. And why I'm so excited tonight is our special guest, who's coming on very, very soon, has all 3 of these areas mastered. And that is why he is on this show, because he is a successful entrepreneur in his own right. And we are blessed, all of us are blessed to have this young man join us tonight here on the show. And one other aspect of very, very successful people is they all, to a person, are very avid readers. And so real quick, we're going to segue into a quick segment I call affectionately bookmarks.
Bookmarks. Born to read. Bookmarks. Ready, steady, read. Bookmarks. Brought to you by reachyourpeaklibrary.com.
All right, there you see it to my left, to your right on the screen. If you're watching on video, if you're listening on Audible, listen and take notes, especially hope you're not driving. So don't take notes if you're driving. But if you are driving, that's fine. Go ahead and listen. That's fantastic. And another thing to note, you are going to be given different valuable resources throughout the duration of this show by way of websites and other resources. And one of the things that many of us, including myself, are tempted to do is go check those out while the show is running. Rather than do that, I challenge you now to close every tab on your browser except this one that you're watching on right now, and then take it a step further and grab some, good old-fashioned paper and a pen and get ready to take notes, because Joe Nunziata is going to be showering us with gifts of value tonight. And so just wanted you to be prepared and get the most out of this show, because as they say, the magic happens in the room, and we're in a virtual room, but you get the idea. All right. Reach Your Peak Library. What is that? That is actually a website that I had developed really with you in mind. I'm not kidding. This was for entrepreneurs and business people who are looking to find ways to increase and improve their business and their personal lives. And so I began reading voraciously only about 10 years ago. I wasn't a voracious reader my entire life. When I finally woke up from my stupor and started reading, I began then cataloging all of the books that had impact on me personally. And that means through business and personal. And I put them in this website. And I'm really behind. There's only about 40 books in here. I've got many more that I've completed. I just need to have this website updated. These are, though, the creme de la creme. These are the top of the top. I have read several since then that are really good as well. This is a great starting point. So if you are not an avid reader yet, then come to this site, reachyourpeaklibrary.com. Find the first book that jumps out at you. Don't worry about analyzing all of them, and just grab the version that calls to you. For me, it's Audible. I love listening. For others, they love having a physical book to open and touch and feel. Others are okay with Kindle. Whatever that is, grab it and start reading now. If you're already an avid reader, this might be a good place to come to find additional books that maybe you had not read yet. Because the beautiful thing about this, and what I teach all the time, is the best way to achieve success is simply to model success. And all you have to do is model after what other people or successful people have read. And so I personally vetted each book that's in this website. Does that guarantee you'll get everything out of it that I did? No, I can't guarantee that. But the odds are much greater that you will, since at least one person has vetted them. And I've thrown this list out in front of many accomplished, successful entrepreneurs in my walk, and they all say, what a great list of books. So that is a resource for you. There's absolutely, it's not there to make money. It's there for you to have a resource to dig in and get in the habit of reading and do it on a regular basis. All right, enough of this. Let's move into what you're really here for, and that is our special guest expert. Let's bring him on right now, shall we? Here we go.
It's time for the guest expert spotlight. Savvy, skillful, professional, adept, trained, big league, qualified.
And there he is, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Joe Nunziata. Woo-hoo-hoo. I am so excited, Joe. Thank you so very much for coming on, agreeing to spend an hour with not just myself, but all of our viewers. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, my goodness. This is going to just be off the charts. I cannot wait. Before I formally introduce you, Joe, what I want to do real quick is let everybody know, for those of you that stay on to the very end of this show, watch it live, you can qualify and enter to win a 5-night stay at a 5-star luxury resort in Mexico, all compliments of our good friends at powertexting.com. For those of you watching, you see that on the upper right of your screen. And it's an amazing thing. And just so you know, it is not one of those things where they shoo you into a timeshare pitch. It has nothing to do with, in fact, it's basically you get a free vacation stay, and that's it. It's like you paid full price. And I know this because the owner of powertexting.com, my good buddy Jason Nast, has tested it not just once, but 3 times, and he has gone to different hotels and said it's phenomenal and no crazy stuff is happening on the side. So be sure to stay on to the end. I can't wait for all of you to win. Okay, only one of you gets to win. We give one away every show, so keep coming back. Perfect. Now, to bring on the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joe Nunziata is a best-selling author, spiritual life and business coach, and professional speaker. He has been delivering his life-changing message at events and seminars since 1992. He's been around, ladies and gentlemen. His enlightening programs are a unique blend of spirituality, psychology, philosophy, and the power of internal energy. That last one really has piqued my interest. And so with that, I want to formally say, Joe, welcome to the show. Thanks so
thank
much.
you.
Fantastic. Now, I do this with every guest that comes on. You know, the bio gives us a little bit of background. It's kind of us on the surface level. We get an idea of your accolades, your background, your experience. What I always love to do, because I'm very, very curious about successful people like you, like what is going up in that absolutely beautiful brain of yours on a daily basis. And so how I like to bring that up and pose the question to you is, so like when you get up in the morning, you know, and you prop yourself up, you swing around, your feet hit the floor, you start coming to. I take a while to come to. That's why I say that. You start coming to a little bit maybe, and then, okay, the lights start going brighter, and you say, okay, another day. I'm motivated. I'm driven. What is that for you that you keep motivated every single day that keeps you going to become as successful as you become?
Well, I'll tell you this, Brian, it's a lot different now than when I started. And, you know, as you get older and you become different and, you know, go through your different things in life and elevate yourself on many levels, especially emotionally. So for me, my real mission at this point is to help elevate consciousness. So I want to help people become elevated in their awareness and understanding of themselves first, and then the world around them. So as they do that, they start to improve their lives. And this is something to me that's critically important, because we're very stuck. Many people are just really stuck in the day-to-day activities of life and what's going on, and the drama and the ego, and, you know, all the things that we all deal with, as whether we're, you know, married, not married, or relationships and kids and businesses and bills. But really showing people how to elevate above the day-to-day daily routines and see themselves in a much bigger way. And that, to me, is what really motivates me. And I'm really doing this a lot now in the corporate world, bringing the corporations to a different way of seeing people and what they do and how they impact the world. So that's really what gets me rolling on a daily basis.
I love it. So in other words, you actually like helping people.
Yeah, helping, but also really empowering, I would say, more so, because you know, the one thing that people say to me, "Oh, you're a motivational speaker," and I say, you know, I never like that term, because motivation is something that you have temporarily. Empowerment is something you have all the time. So I don't really want to motivate you. I mean, I want to motivate you in certain ways, but my real mission is to help people become empowered, so they can now go and help other people become empowered. That's how we make the world a better place.
Man, that is what a beautiful reframe that was. Instead of helping, I'd rather say empowering. That is perfect. If you don't mind, I'm going to use that.
That's all right.
That is brilliant. It's genius. It's so simple. Here's the thing for everyone watching and listening, you know, that's what it comes down to. What success comes down to are those little differences, like you just heard with what Joe just said. That's one example. How he has taken something that nearly everybody says, you know, I like helping people, and changed it, reframed it to, I'd prefer to say empowering people. And then he explained why. I'm like, that's a different mindset than most. And that's why he's at the level he is, and many others are not. And so it doesn't take rocket science to become successful. All you need to do is model, which means copy someone like Joe. That's it. It's that simple. And I know, just talking to Joe briefly, we've never met before. It's one of those things, right, Joe? We've never met before. Do a magic trick. We've never met before, but we got to talk and get to know each other for about half an hour before the show came on. And I could tell immediately that this man's heart is in the spot that all entrepreneurs' hearts are, that I know anyway, or most of them, I should say. He's someone who loves empowering others. I'm going to keep reframing that and make good on that. That's good. Empowering. That's not good. It's great. It's fantastic. So yeah, I just want to impart on folks that, yeah, it's all about just the little things and modeling successful people. And so that's what I want you to do on this show, is take notes and find those things that are different, that when Joe talks, and sometimes they may not be different, but you hear a repetition of what other successful people do. When you start hearing things repeat, then you know that they're onto something. So should you not do the same thing? The answer is you should. Definitely. And so, yeah, that's fantastic. So I opened the show by talking a little bit about books and the importance of reading them. Do you personally have a book that you would say, like a business related book, that really stands out above all the others, that really inspired you the most?
Well, I'm going to give you a book that's really not a business related book per se, but it is in another way. And it's a book that I read usually about every year to 18 months. And it's funny, you're talking about books in the beginning. When I moved, I tell you, I'm from New York, and we moved to California. And when we were getting ready to move, I had hundreds and hundreds of books. So I said, I can't take all these books. I donated a bunch of them, and I kept some that were my favorites. But one of those was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And I don't know if you've read that book, but, you know, Man's Search for Meaning is a book. Viktor Frankl is a psychiatrist who was a prisoner at Auschwitz during World War II.
Wow. And
the book is about, and coming from the perspective of a person like him who was a psychiatrist, the book is about, why did certain people survive when a lot of people didn't? What was the difference? You know, you kind of said in the beginning, what makes this person different? What makes a successful person different? And one of the things Viktor Frankl talks about in the book is, you know, what was the difference between those who made it and those who didn't? And the bottom line was, he said, the people who made it had something to look forward to when the ordeal was over. And that was one of the things that he focused on. And I think that's an important thing for all of us, because we could get caught up in doing something here in the physical world and lose sight of a lot of other things that are much more important, like our families and our friends and our relationships and our, significant others. So it's something that really stuck with me, because it was kind of like, okay, this was a situation where you're in the worst possible circumstance in the world. And I'm sure every single day you get up and you want to die. What is it that person, what kept that person going? And it was just a fascinating, it's just one of the most powerful books I've ever read.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. And I wrote that down as fast as I possibly could. By the way, so everyone out there, I said, I recommended you take notes. I'm the host, director, producer, the end all be all grand poobah of this show, and I'm still taking notes myself. And
old school. I like it, with the paper and pen.
And it commits it to memory much better.
Yes.
And I've got a stack of these from past shows that I keep in a drawer in case I ever need to refer back to them. Usually I don't have to, because I've written it down and it's committed. And the things like you just said, right after this show, I do this every time. I'm going to go buy that book on Audible because I've never heard of it and I haven't read it. And so, anybody of your caliber that recommends something like that, I'm on it. I'm modeling success. It doesn't matter. And I don't even know. I can't compare you to me and who's more successful. It doesn't matter to me. Success is very subjective, right? It means it means different things to different people. But to me, anyone who is out there working hard and hitting the pavement and empowering others, I am going to model them, because I want to do the same thing at a higher level all the time. No matter what level we achieve, I want to continue to raise that bar and keep it going. And so appreciate you for doing what you're doing, number one.
Thank you.
And so we were talking before the show, and this gentleman, look at him. He looks pretty darn good, doesn't he? I mean, he's a handsome dude. He looks like he's in shape. And look at that smile. It's wonderful. And one thing I wanted to ask is, well, I'll say it first, because I said I'll go first. And when we were off camera, I said, I'm gonna go first. I'm curious, because this guy, you were telling me things that kind of dated you. And I thought, man, I think he might be a little older than me, but he doesn't look like he's older than me. So I said, okay, Joe, I'll go first. I'm 55, and I just waited. So I'll let you fill in the blank on this one.
So in a couple of weeks, I will be hitting my big 6-0. So that will be a big day, obviously, to get to that number. So I'm still rolling.
I love it. Yeah, and continue to roll. And here's the thing: we were talking about this, and actually, the next question I want to ask you is right down this alley. I'd love for you to share what you were sharing with me about the aging process, because it's obvious. I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it so that you can share it with everyone else. And that is, do you find physical fitness an important aspect of your life? And if so, why?
It's one of those things for me personally. I've been playing sports. I've been an athlete my whole life. So I've always been involved in fitness. It was one of those, as a kid, and just continued it all the way through. So I never stopped playing sports, even when I was older, going to the gym. I was a boxer at one point. I still box. Now I don't box others, but I still train. I can't be getting hit anymore because I can't do it. But I still do boxing training. I still hit the bag. I still jump rope. I still do speed bag. I still do all that stuff. So it's been always very important for me to be in good physical condition. As we were talking about earlier, when you're out speaking and you're out doing, you need energy. You need to be in shape. I was in sales, same thing. You need a lot of energy. You have to talk to a lot of people. You've got to move around. You're going on different appointments. You need to have energy. And if you're physically not fit, it definitely is a detriment. It definitely does hurt you and hurt your performance and creates problems. So to me, that's always been one of the keys to moving forward and continuing to maintain a high level of energy, is to be in good physical fitness and be in good shape. And it has to become a part of your life. It's not something you do once in a while. Like, to me, I'm in the gym 4 or 5 times a week. It doesn't matter. And people have every excuse. I look at my calendar and I say, okay, here's where I'm going, here's where I'm going, here's where I'm going. And it will be different every week because my schedule is always different, but I always make it happen.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And you talked about the aging process when we were talking about it, how it's more about that than genetics. It's about your lifestyle versus genetics. Yeah. I thought that was very powerful for people to understand. Like, yeah, there is genetics involved there for sure. I mean, there's no doubt, but the older you get, the more your lifestyle is in charge of how quickly you will age from that point on.
Yeah, well, the research does show that, genetics obviously play a factor because we know certain people are just healthier. But each year that goes by, it's less genetics, more lifestyle. So that is a very critical thing for people, because certain people, I think, I've seen people that really looked good who really didn't take care of themselves, and they fell off a cliff because they did not take care of themselves. And probably those people who did have the good genetics, if they had a good lifestyle, they'd really be in great shape. So, definitely a huge factor. But yeah, both are important, but the lifestyle wins out in the end.
Speaking of lifestyle, part of that in your life is your business. And in fact, if you're like any other entrepreneur on the planet who loves what they do, it's almost is your life. And oftentimes, I get asked, what do you do for fun? What's your hobby? I'm like, what's a hobby? I don't know. I love doing what I do. And in fact, recently I was on vacation with my wife. We were on a cruise. It was like a 10-day cruise. And by day 7, I was going crazy.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get back and get at it. I just love it so much.
Yeah.
But for you, what I wanted to find out and dig in so folks can understand and recognize, what is it? What do you do? What is your business model? Who do you help? Who's your perfect client? Who's your perfect client? And then how do you help them?
So a couple of different things. So I started out as a sales trainer, because I had a sales background from my younger days. And then, was always studying business. And then I started to do more general consulting, and I had a good marketing background as well. That's where I started. And then as I got into different points of my life, I started to because I'll give you the whole story, but I ended up, my dad passed when I was 12 years old. He was a detective in New York, and I was the oldest boy and went to work right after high school, didn't go to college, and ended up I was just super aggressive and wanted to be successful. And, my belief system was I'm supposed to take care of everybody. And long story short, I ended up going bankrupt twice by 30. And before the second bankruptcy, I was kind of frustrated because, Brian, as you're saying earlier, I was reading a lot of books. And even though I didn't go to college, I was reading, and I had tapes, and I was going to seminars, and I'm writing my goals, and I'm knocking myself out. And I was having, kind of peaks, a little, some success, but I just couldn't keep it going. And like I said, I was struggling. So I actually started off by going to therapy. And I went to see a psychologist because I was just kind of saying, I don't have an answer. I am working 80 hours a week. I am setting goals. I am doing everything I can do. I just can't seem to get this sustainable. And that led me into energy and metaphysical work. So I started to learn about how your energy works, and, really learning about law of attraction 30 years ago, before everybody even knew what it was. I certainly didn't know what it was. And then started to, really work on myself and start to integrate those things into my life. First, just for my own self, to get myself on track. And then as I started to do that, I said, well, these are universal energy principles, so I should be able to use them in business. And then I started using them with my clients and what I was doing and helping people. And so now I actually do both. So what I do is I work with entrepreneurs, I work with corporations, I work with even individuals who just want to help themselves clear their, really on a personal level, more as a life coach. But the majority of my work is usually speaking and working with companies and entrepreneurs, helping them build their business, showing them how to do a better job in sales and marketing, but also showing them that if your energy is not clear and if you are not in alignment, you will still struggle. Or even if you become successful, you'll create other problems in your life. I've seen it a lot, where I've seen people who are tremendously financially successful and have created all kinds of other problems in their lives. So the idea is empowerment is about moving yourself to a place. Yeah, being powerful is great, but ultimately you want to be in a place where you feel peaceful. And in the world of business, when you get caught on the wheel of the next thing, you'll drive yourself crazy because there's always something else to do. So the key is getting yourself to a place where you feel peaceful every day. That's my goal. And that's where I focus every day. So every day, my first most important thing for me is, am I in a state of peace today? Because that is where I'm going to be at my best to serve and to do my work.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I love the part where you talked about energy and metaphysical work and how you first did it for yourself and then realized that you can utilize that to empower others. So yes, I said empower again. You got me. That's good. And I love that because we have similar paths. I learned NLP, and again, first for myself, and then the first thing I was thinking of was my immediate family, right? Wife and kids.
I'm sure that these things usually don't go well, but anyway. I had the same idea with my mother and sisters and so forth. That didn't go very well.
Isn't that interesting how family seems to be the most hesitant and resistant to something from those who love them more than anybody on the planet?
Well, I think it's just, it's just different people. I always, one of the things I always talk to people about, I say, because they'll ask me about relationships and so forth, and I'm blessed. I have an amazing wife. We've been married. We'll be married 30 years this year. And one of the things people ask me is like, how do you keep it, how did this happen? And how do you keep it together? 30 years in this day and age is like 200 years, I think, in the modern time. But, and I said, you know what? We were both seekers of improvement. And we both were the same. So even though we had different, obviously, interests in different things and obviously a lot of similarities, but the main thing was, it wasn't like one person was seeking change and improvement and one person wasn't. And I think with families, you have a lot of people who really are not seeking change.
Yeah.
So, which is fine. For us, it's important to accept that and say, okay, I have to accept that these people, that's not what they're about. And, it's frustrating in the beginning and it was very upsetting because you say, you feel like, why don't you want to help yourself? But you have to accept that that's their journey and that's what they came to do.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it. And I used a sneaky method for learning NLP. I brought our youngest child with me to go through it with me. Wyatt, at the time, he was only 16 years old. And I got it approved with the folks that were running the training ahead of time. And they could see he was very mature. And it was awesome, Joe, because when we got home from it was a 5-day intense training, 5 days solid, all day long, each day. And it was great. And we got home and my daughter was there, at the house. And I went upstairs. I came back downstairs and there they were in the kitchen, both sitting in dining room chairs facing each other. I mean, picture that. Young kids facing each other, really, and actually going through NLP techniques with her, helping her. And I broke down right there and I walked away because I'm falling, right? I'm like, this is awesome. So I'm so blessed that happened. And then later, my wife has then also come to a couple of advanced trainings, and it's fulfilling to be able to get that far. And I just gave the distance, like you're saying, we have to be okay with being okay with it. And, loving them so deeply as you and I love our respective families, that's hard to do. That's hard to do, is to let go, to step back.
Yeah,
and just,
very hard.
It's like, bring it up. It's okay to bring it up. And if the resistance hits you, and it's usually, you'll know if it's hard or not.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. We won't readdress that one for some time, if ever again.
Yes, for sure.
So there's more to business than just business. There's also the day-to-day, family life, getting along with your family, knowing how and when to get off the gas pedal, so to speak. All these things all attribute to one's overall success, not just business topics. That's why I love taking it down this little tangent that we have, and bring it back to business. Now, there are a lot of skill sets that are required to become a successful entrepreneur. I mean, I mentioned very few of them, especially on the business side of things. It can be overwhelming for those who are trying to achieve the level of success that they are looking to achieve, and they haven't achieved it yet. And so the curious thing is, there are so many skill sets. What would you say if you had to pick? Let's put it this way. If you had to pick 3 of the absolute top skills you found necessary for yourself to be a successful entrepreneur, help a brother out, meaning our audience, what would you say those 3 would be?
I think the first one is, I'm going to combine it, to know yourself and be yourself. So one of the things I think that happens in business is when we're trying to model somebody or follow somebody or learn something, we sometimes have a tendency to try to say, I need to be like that. And that's a mistake, because the bottom line is you can learn something, you can pick something up, but at the end of the day, you have to be yourself. And there are certain things that certain people do and certain ways that they operate that may not work for you, regardless of how successful they are or it works for them. So the idea of really knowing who you are and saying, okay, this is what I'm good at. and this is my strength, and I'm going to be myself. That to me is the first one. I think that's very important. I think a lot of people try to be something else. And we see this a lot with politicians, where people are trying to present an image that they think the people will vote for instead of being authentic. And the people I love are people who are just like, hey, this is who I am. If you like me, great. If you don't like me, it's okay. I don't take it personally. So that to me would be number one, as far as really being in that space. The second one, to me, I think that's really critical for most people who are really good, is they're able to communicate very well and clearly identify what they do, how they help, and also that they're good at communication and they're good at understanding other people. Because one of the keys to growing a company, if you want to grow a business, is you have other people, and it's like a coach of a team. And I've worked with sports teams as well, and every player is different, and what motivates player A doesn't motivate player B. And you cannot come in and say, we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to be. And obviously you have certain processes and systems, don't get me wrong, but it's really learning how to relate to each person and understanding those people, which is communication. And also part of communication to me is listening. You have to listen to the people and pay attention to what drives them, because then you learn how to keep those people motivated, loyal. One of the biggest problems I see when I go into corporations nowadays is retention. They talk about people coming and leaving, and it's costing companies absolute fortunes of money to keep turning people over. And the bottom line is, when I talk to people and I ask them, what's the most important thing to you? They'll say, I want to be heard, and I want to feel like I have value here. They don't, everybody wants to make more money, don't get me wrong, but the ability to communicate with people in a sincere and effective way and listen to them and understand them and help them grow and become empowered. So these are things that are critically important for people to understand, that when they do those things. And the last one for me, which I think, I've been preaching this from day one as a sales guy, and it's the most simple thing, but it's the hardest thing in the world, and it is consistency. People are very inconsistent, and I see this with salespeople all the time. They'll go on a hot streak, they'll be killing it for a while, they'll be following with their process, they'll be working on their energy, they're feeling good, their energy's good, they're working out, and all of a sudden they'll just stop, or they just will lose it, and everything goes down the drain. So the ability to be consistent. I wake up every morning, pretty much, obviously certain days depending on what's happening, but I get up the first thing in the morning, I do a meditation before I do anything else, because I want to set up my day in a way that is going to be, I want to be locked in, I want to be peaceful, I want to be focused, I want to have good intention. So that's the first thing I do, and every single day, that's the way I start my day. And then I'm doing things every day that are in alignment with where it is that I want to go, but I'm consistently doing those things. It's a consistency factor. So those to me would be the three that I would focus on as most important.
Fantastic. A lot of golden nuggets there. And again, I'm taking notes for those of you watching, because listening, you just have to trust me that I'm taking notes. I was showing it on the camera. I love those three, and they are a little bit out of the ordinary as far as what a lot of people would go to, the go-to skills, right? Like some would say sales and marketing and team building, and those are, but I think yours are more powerful because they go into the mind part of mind body business, because let's face it, the mind is the foundation of where you are today. So if you have an empowered mindset, if you have a positive mindset, if you have a flexible mindset, then the odds are you're already very successful. And it's about the mind, and the mind is the thing that either makes or breaks your success, in my opinion. I just believe it thoroughly. After going through the NLP training, I realized all I have to do is clean out the mind, and then, wow, things opened up big. And so I love this. Know yourself and be yourself. That's about being comfortable with yourself. And when you know yourself and you can be yourself, what does that exude? It's confidence, right? And everyone who is in business, if you don't exude confidence, no one's going to buy from you. So these are great tips. Communication. Oh my, that's true in business. That's true in family life. That's huge. And and the way you broke it out and said understanding other people, as you know, to kind of peel away the onion a little bit, very huge. And that's great. So now you know their language, their likes, their dislikes, so you can address them and talk to them at their level, so to speak. Not saying a level is higher or lower, it's just different than yours, and you can meet them with the same language. And then consistency. These are just incredibly powerful. Joe, these are amazing. Consistency, my gosh, that is probably one of the hardest ones of all for people to actually, you know, get over the hump and just do it, and do it on a regular basis. And I found one thing that helps a lot for me is going through and reading affirmations, a lot of them in the morning, and doing it on a regular basis. First thing, you get up and do meditation every morning. And I've talked about this many times on the show, because every successful entrepreneur has what is called a routine, and they stick to it. And the thing is, if you don't have a routine yet, model Joe and just start with meditation. Why not? I mean, how long do you do that for?
You know, again, this is, it's funny because, like I said, being from New York, I used to teach meditation in New York too. And I would have people come to events, and one day I was doing a group of Wall Street guys, and these people are, they're the most frenetic, driven, obsessed people you're going to meet. And a lot of them they had brought me in because a few of these guys were really becoming addicts, and a few tried to actually kill themselves. Wow. So I said to them, they said, well, they were like, well, what do I have to do? How long do I have to do this? And what is it? I said, listen, it's not about length, it's about consistency. So get up in the morning, take 2 or 3. See, I know if I told them 30 minutes, they would resist. So I said, all you have to do is get quiet for 2 or 3 minutes in the morning. So the bottom line is, it's not length. What'll happen is, when you start with 2 to 3 minutes, all of a sudden it'll become 5, it'll become 10, it'll become 20. And, usually my mornings are about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on what I'm doing that day. But again, it's really about just quieting yourself. One of the problems we have, and one of the problems with our mind, which is where there's another piece of the puzzle that elevates us to the empowerment level, which is, your mind is limited. Your real driver of your life is your emotions, because your emotions drive everything. So what you have to learn how to do, your chakra system, your energy system, everything that you're doing, all of your desires, these are all driven by emotion. So the key is learning to understand how you feel, why you feel that way. And if you are carrying negative emotion, it's going to create negative thoughts, which is then going to create negative situations in your life. So the idea is to say, if I never quiet my mind, I'm never going to get centered into the power of the universe. So you've got to get into a position where now it is so difficult, because people are just insane with the phones and the computers and everything else. And, I walk around the gym. It's one of the things I love to do. And I'm in the gym walking around, and every person, they're on the treadmill, they're looking at their phone, they're texting. I saw a guy the other day, he's doing sit-ups and he's texting. So I'm just like, this is, I never bring my phone into the gym, because that's my time to focus on my exercise and what I'm doing. So we're constantly distracted. We don't know how to get quiet, and we don't know how to, you have to understand, creativity, which is critical to business success and life success, does not come, you don't sit around. I can't say to you, hey, Brian, let's just sit here and come up with an idea. The things come to us. That's all geniuses will say, I'm sitting there and all of a sudden this idea came in. These things come from a higher place, but we have to get quiet to let that happen. So if you don't get quiet every day, you're doing yourself a very big disservice.
I love it. And that's so funny, because I've seen those in the gym. I always bring my phone, but it's to listen to music to drown out everything that's going on. And yeah. I actually tried, if I'm on the treadmill, that's pretty mindless. I'm not really concentrating on my muscle groups. There is where I would listen to an Audible book, where I could concentrate on the book and still get what, the results and benefit from the exercise. Everything else was music. It's like, I have to concentrate on, if I'm lifting some heavy weight, somebody can get hurt, and that somebody's me. So
you know who it is. You know who that is.
Yeah. And you want to concentrate on the muscles that you're using as you're lifting. Many people don't even realize that is a thing, and that it's very effective and powerful. Oh, yeah. Read some of Arnold Schwarzenegger's books, and you'll find that out. He was a pioneer in so many ways. What an amazing guy. But we can go on and on about all of that. There are so many things I want to ask you, Joe. So do you mind if we just stretch this into a 4-hour show? Are you okay with that?
Whatever you got to do.
Well, speaking of hours, I know that I can get a little bit out of hand and really go crazy. And I'm in the midst right now of developing an info product, and it has really consumed not just my time, but my every waking moment thought. It's taken months already, and it's going to take probably a couple more to finish. And there are times when I kind of mess up and I work a little too long, and then I go downstairs to see my wife, and I can tell. You just see that look. It's like, oops, sorry, I know I overdid it.
Yeah.
But for you, on average, how many hours would you say you worked in a day, so other people can get an idea? Just from you. I mean, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but for you, it's right.
It depends what I'm doing. If I'm out doing a corporate training, it could be a whole day. But I would say a general day for me could be as little as 3 hours if I don't have anything necessarily on my calendar. If I just have a couple of things to do, or I do a little writing or whatever, it could be 10 hours depending on what I'm doing. But I would say, I think I kind of look at it as I'll balance it based on what's happening. If I have like next week, I have a busy week. I have 3 speaking engagements next week. So that's going to be a little more rigorous of a week. This week was a little quiet, first week after the holidays. So, I mean, there are days that I won't really work at all. I'll tell you the truth. I'll get up, which is something I could never do before because I was always guilty. Again, had to get through that feeling of guilt. But it's kind of like there'll be a day I'll say, you know what, there's really not a lot for me to do. I'm just going to go to a movie, or I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to go get a sauna, and I'm going to go have lunch with a friend or whatever. So I don't want to. I hate the idea. This is one of the things that drives me crazy, which is why I don't like school and I don't like corporate, because everything is the rigid system of you go to school for this time, you work from 9 to 5, you do this, you do that. It's a very ineffective way for humans. Humans don't function like that. We function best when we are able to be fluid, but our society does not allow us to be fluid because it's just the way it's built. So I think what you have to learn to do, if you're an entrepreneur, especially, because an entrepreneur, when I was younger, I was working every hour I was awake, I was working. That was it. I was either working or sleeping. That was all I was doing. So, working, eating, sleeping, that was basically what I did 24 hours a day. But now at this point, I don't, I'm past that stage of my life. And, again, I was younger and it was a different time. But now it's my goal, and this is going to sound crazy to people, but my goal is I want everything to be very easy where I don't need to do a lot. And people say, what? That's like the total opposite of what I've learned, or you have to like nose to the grindstone, or it's so difficult. So the idea is be in a flow. And when you're flowing and you've got a lot going on, go with it. And maybe you have to do extra that day. You know what? There's the next day. Wow, this day just opened up and I don't have a lot going on. I'm going to take a break today because again, it's balancing yourself. Nobody can work at a high level every day like that. Nobody can do it. It's diminishing returns, as they call it, right?
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain amount and I worked in corporate, and I would see people. I was saying 25 years ago when I first got into corporate, I was a kid, and I was saying we should be working 4 days a week because nobody works on Friday. So it was almost like, what's the point? Like by Friday, everybody was done. And I said, if I said to every person in this building, would you work an extra hour a day to not come in on Friday? Every single person would have said, absolutely yes. So again, this is forward thinking. And I think eventually we're going to get to a 3 and 4 day work week, and people will be equally or more productive than they are now. And because the bottom line is we need time to regenerate, we need time to rest. And this whole structure is not really conducive to the world that we are going to be creating going forward. I think you're going to see a lot of changes like that taking place.
Yeah, and countless studies support what you just said about productivity, and that it does not go up in a straight line.
No. Along
with the number of hours you're working. The productivity dips way down.
Right.
It actually nosedives. And they did studies. I think it was in Japan where I think it was Japan where they work insane hours, and I forget it was 6 or 7 days a week, but they're working all the time. And a company did a test. And they basically dropped 1 or 2 days, I forget how much, and their productivity soared.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, night and day difference where the company saw, wow, we're getting a lot more out of our people because we're actually letting them rest. And that's it. You know, we can have those 10, 12-hour days, but that's not sustainable. I don't think either, because everything, like you're saying, the creativity, it's gone. You're exhausted. We both felt it. We've all felt it at times where you feel like you have this fog brain kind of thing going on. Like, man, why can't I think? Oh, I'm exhausted. That's why I'm working too much. Time to just cut it off and be done for the night, and hit it again tomorrow after a good night's sleep and some exercise. I resonate totally with everything you're saying. I love this. I'm having a blast. Where are you speaking coming up next week? Is it going to be in SoCal?
I will be in SoCal. I actually have a couple of events in SoCal next week. I'll be in Irvine, one event. One event is in Tustin. If you go on my website, I have all my stuff that's public. Okay. A lot of these things are not public. They are corporate, so they're not open to the public. They're more going into their corporate events, so they're not public, open to the public. So, I do a combination of both, but these will be local out here this week.
Sweet. And that's his website, joenunz.com. I saw your namesake was taken there.
Yeah, that's a really funny story, but I'll tell you quickly. I went to buy my name in 1995. Somebody else, and this guy, Joe Nunziata in Florida, who's a real estate guy, had it.
Yep.
So a few years later, about 5 or 6 years later, I had written some books and I had been pretty known. And I ended up getting in touch with him. And he said to me, he's a real estate guy they buy properties. And he said, we took over a property. And when I got there to the property, they had pictures of you all over the place. And he said, I think they were very disappointed when you didn't show up because they thought Joe Nunziata was me and not him. So we have it's a running joke of
that's awesome.
So I actually have J Nunziata, and then I did Joe Nunz because everybody can't spell my name. So I just did that. That's
actually catchy. Yeah, that'd be a good stage name, Joe Nunz. That's awesome.
Everybody called me Joe Nunz growing up, so it was like, okay, that's what everybody called me. Yeah, in the neighborhood, Brooklyn, New York, everything is a nickname or a shortening. Nobody goes with the full name.
Well, I think Joe is pretty short. I don't know. Yeah. So you talked. You've actually brought it up several times that how emotion plays into our lives. You talked about it directly, and then you brought up. I'm trying to remember the other emotion that you recently brought up, and just said it's. I think guilt was one of them. Yeah. And that's another very strong emotion. And then one of the absolute most powerful emotions that will keep any of us from achieving what we desire, that will cause hesitance and resistance, is fear. And it's fear of whatever. You have that. Remember those cartoons where you have an angel on one shoulder and on the other, and the angel's giving you the right advice and the devil's saying the wrong thing? Well, we want to get a way to just knock that devil off the shoulder and get rid of that kind of fear, because there's no place for it in our lives. The resistance and hesitation comes, it's not necessary, and there are ways to eliminate it. But on that note, we all have them still. We are all human.
Yeah. And
if you had one that you could pinpoint today, and this just whatever you go with, is what would what would be your greatest fear? And then how do you go about managing that fear?
Today, I don't know that I had the fear. Like, I think before I really had fear of failure. I had fear of not being seen as successful, or I had fear of this. My big fear in life was disappointing people. That was probably the biggest fear that I had, that I was going to disappoint people, not get to wherever I thought I was supposed to get to. So I would say that was probably the biggest one for me. And I still, work on these things because we all have them and we carry these fears with us throughout our lives. But what I learned about energy, and one of the things to understand, that all feelings come with positive and negative energy. So that's the yin yang of life. So some fear is actually positive and some fear is negative. So for example, if I have fear of walking down a dark alley because it looks like it's dangerous, that's actually protecting me from getting hurt. So that's fear, that's good. But also when we do something different, when we expand ourselves, it is natural to have fear. So one of the things that people do wrong, and which is the reason they get stuck, is they try to make believe they don't have that fear. So you're going to start a business, you're going to buy a company, you're going to start a new job, whatever it is, you're going to do something different. One of the big fears I've seen with people is getting in front of an audience and speaking, which is something I do all the time, but a lot of people are very afraid of it. So people would say, yeah, I'm really nervous. I'm afraid. So what you don't want to do is make believe you're not afraid, because what you have to do is say, I'm going to accept that I have this fear, but I'm going to move forward anyway. But by accepting the fact that you have it, you actually dissolve the resistance of the energy. So this is the way energy works, because energy is based on acceptance and resistance. So if I feel fearful, I can't not feel fearful. That's important to understand. So now I have to say, well, you know what? I do feel fearful. It's okay. See, so it's like, I'm going to make it okay to be afraid, have fear, but I'm going to continue to move forward anyway. And then I'll deal with whatever comes next. So it's a different way to deal with fear, as opposed to trying to make believe you don't have it, because that is what causes most of the problem. Is it's almost like saying I'm nervous, but I'm going to make believe I'm not nervous, but I really am nervous. Just allow yourself to be that, and it will pass through you, and all of a sudden you feel a lot better.
Yeah, I love that. And that's, fear, like you said, it can be good and it can be bad. And I've spoken about that from stage, where we go into the amygdala and get a little,
Right.
biological there, and say, look, we're going to take you through a process in a moment in NLP to remove that unwarranted and unwanted fear. Just know that we're not removing that fight or flight fear that you
need.
And we're not doing it.
Right.
They are doing it. They're just following the process. But it's huge. And everything you're saying is absolutely correct. That, this is, if you are able to manage your fear and act in spite of it, then you can become much more empowered to move forward. And we often say, how many times has it happened? It's happened to me many times. Let's say we're in a seminar. We have a speaker up there, compelling. Oh my gosh, they are amazing. Then they come with the big pitch, and then it's, more than we have in our pocket. And we talk ourselves out of it. And we go through that resistance and hesitation known as fear of, what is my significant other going to think if I drop that kind of cash and fill up my credit card and all that other stuff. But deep inside, it's the right move. You know it. And so it's at that point that your subconscious is literally telling you, do it, go. And that's the problem, is the fear is keeping us back. And I don't know how many countless numbers of people have, missed out on things because of that very one thing. And I know this from actual personal experience, where we went through the NLP processes and addressed fear. My hesitation was completely gone. And I was presented with yet another very expensive package that I didn't have money in my bank account for at that moment. And it turned out my wife was with me at that moment. We're at another advanced training. And I said, let's just do it. It's right. I mean, everything we learned, this is what we need to do. And we did. And wow, so glad we did. I've never regretted one time making a decision when I realized that was fear that was talking to me, trying to keep me from going. I thought, oh, we're going to do this. We're just going to do it. We'll figure it out. And we did. It was awesome. So, man, I resonate with you, brother. You are, when you talk about the energy and things, it's so similar to what I learned in NLP as well. And so I think there's a lot of overlap between the two approaches, if you will, or sciences. It's phenomenal stuff. Let's see. So being an entrepreneur, you've been in corporate. So you've experienced both sides. How has being an entrepreneur affected you in your family life? I mean, what is it like in Joe's family when Joe, maybe back when you were younger? I don't know. Whatever comes to mind for you, either when you're younger.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a more, in many ways, a more stressful road, because you don't have the steady paycheck, so to speak. So I mean, and again, it's not for everybody. It's one of those things where you have to be a certain kind of person who can deal with risk, who can deal with failure, who can deal with having to make decisions and move quickly and make changes and go through struggles. So a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who worked in banks and had different kinds of jobs, and they would say to me, I don't know how you do that. I could never sleep. I would never sleep. And, again, it's just a different kind of person. It's kind of like the seekers and the non-seekers, like we talked about earlier. I think if you're a certain kind of, you have to go into it knowing that that's what it's about. It will be stressful. Like I said, when I work with people, my first book was called No More 9 to 5. I used to help people start a home business while they were still working, because that's what I had done. And one of the main things I would talk to people about was to say, this is not for everybody. That if you're not this kind of person, this is not a road. And I cannot tell you how many people would come up to me at the end and say, thank you so much. I know I can't do this. Yeah. So it was almost like, at first I said, wow, I don't want to scare people, but they were like thankful, because they said, I didn't realize what was involved emotionally and what was involved for me to have to do to really be able to do this. So I think it just is a different kind of person, and you have to be okay with would be instability. But one of the things I always loved, because it was funny, all these friends I had who worked in the banks and so forth, and I was still in New York in 2008 when we had the big crash, and a lot of them lost their jobs. And they were scrambling because they could not get jobs, because the whole industry basically collapsed. And again, so this perceived safe road is not always the safe road. And I love the Buddha comment when the Buddha says everything in the physical world is impermanent. So there is no permanence. Even being successful as an entrepreneur is not permanent. How many companies have we seen? They're hot. All of a sudden they just fall off a cliff. Or the next technology comes, especially in the world of technology. It's the hottest thing. Does anybody have a MySpace account? Think about it. That was the hottest thing, right? And then Facebook came in, and who knows what'll be next after that. So exactly. Everything is impermanent, whether it's a job or whether it's being an entrepreneur. To me, the bottom line is follow your gut, follow your heart. If you feel called and you feel like you really want to do something on your own, and really empower yourself, because that's what you're really doing, and also change the world. You're making the world a better place. If you want to do that, that's more important. That's okay. But the idea that there is a road that is completely safe is foolish, and I think a lot of people do think that, and it's not true.
So many things about that I love. One was you told the truth. I've seen other speakers get up there and literally tell people to quit their job.
Yeah, ridiculous.
That's irresponsible.
Yes, very irresponsible.
I mean, I look at them and I go, you don't know my life. Yeah, I would love to be done with my job, but I can't just up and quit. I don't have the skills I need to develop like what you have already. It's going to take some time. Yeah. I'm not just I got a wife and kid, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, my God. So thank you for doing that, Joe, for being truthful. And you took it another step and said, look, it's not for everybody. And I never hear anybody say that, because usually the speaker from stage is trying to sell their wares, which is part of some entrepreneurship type program. I love that. I love that about you. What you do.
One thing I'm always telling people also, if you're going to buy something, don't buy it because you have to feel it. And a lot of the selling that goes on from the stage, and I'll be the first one to say it here, because it's very manipulative. Yeah. And you're trying to get people to, and I've been in these classes and I've seen how people do it. And it's like, okay, get people to nod their heads, get people to do this, get people to do that, almost mesmerize them into thinking that this is going to save their lives. So these are very dangerous. And, I've seen people run to the back of the room, and I've talked to them afterwards and said, I put 20 grand on my credit card and I didn't have the money, and the whole thing didn't work out. And I got all swept up in the moment. So there's a lot of manipulation. So that's, again, trusting your instincts and saying, okay, I want to make sure that I work with somebody that I feel is really there to help me, and somebody that I get a good feeling about. So again, you have to be careful. Nowadays, it's easy to vet people, vet the people that you're going to work with. And if anybody puts you in a position in my eyes, where it's now or never, do or die. People try to do that to me all the time. That will not work on me, and I will never buy from you. So that is something that if you don't allow me a chance to think about it and really vet this out and make a good decision, I don't want to do business with you. But again, that is a very powerful technique. People are easily manipulated, and I've seen it happen. I'm sure you have too, 1,000,000 times.
Oh, yeah. And I've seen both sides of it, where I worked with a man that I know was not manipulating people. He was only persuading them. And there's a big difference. The difference between manipulation and persuasion is intent. So he's just persuading, helping them to make the decision they already know is right for them, or not. They get to make the decision, but it's not a manipulation technique or tactic that's ever used. It's it's getting them over that fear that we've been talking about, because not everybody has the tools to do that right away. And so there is some convincing that needs to take place to help them understand that this is the right step for them. Give them what is necessary for them to make the proper decision for themselves, and nudge them. But every one of us, nobody wants to part with their money. That's like,
No.
regardless of what it is, regardless. Oh, yeah. And so it is not just, it's our responsibility to help them understand that this is a good investment for them, because we have vetted the whole process ourselves. I'm talking about the good people out there, not the manipulators. As long, because it's been vetted by, I felt very strong about it. I knew in every fiber of my being what I was representing from stage was really good, because I'd been through it and it had great impact. I got value, I got results. Yeah. But I know what you're saying. I've seen the exact opposite of the spectrum. And I've heard from personal friends who have gone to advanced trainings in, I'm not going to make any names, in an individual's home. Yeah. And this individual starved them all day and then upsold them after they're exhausted and hungry, because now their guard is down. And that was another technique back then. That's manipulation. That's horrible. But let's get off of that negative track. We've just hit our actual 1 hour, but good thing is we're not on a television or radio show that we have to literally chop it off. I do have one last question, if you're good sticking on a little bit longer. Joe. And it's one that I love to ask every single past guest that's been on this show. And I love it. It's an amazing question because of the responses that have come in have been really eye-opening over the course of now over a year of doing this show. And I can't wait to bring it on. But before I do that, I promised all those who are watching live that they would have the opportunity to win that 5-night stay at a 5-star resort in Mexico. I'm so excited. I'm losing my voice over it. In Mexico, it's going to be an awesome, awesome thing. And here is exactly how you go about entering. I'm going to bring it up on the screen right now. All you need to do, now you do have our permission to take out your phone and glance away for a moment and type in the number as if you're going to text it. Type in the number 661-535-1624. And then down in the little message area where you normally send texts off to your friends and loved ones, type in the word PEAK. That's PEAK. So go ahead and do that right now. We choose a winner every single show, and you could be the next person heading off to a wonderful resort in Mexico. All compliments of our pals at powertexting.com. So go ahead and text the word PEAK, PEAK, to 661-535-1624. Go ahead and do that right now and come back quick, because it's time for the big question of the evening. Are you ready?
I hope so.
You are? All right.
I hope I'm ready.
Kind of ease any emotions that might be going on right now.
Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that there is no such thing as a wrong answer to this question. It's impossible to answer it incorrectly. And just the opposite is true. The only correct answer is yours and yours alone, because it's a personal question. Okay. So whatever that answer is, and if it takes you a moment, an instant, or it takes you a minute, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, we'll be here, and don't worry about dead air if that's what happens. So what? It's good that we get the essence of Joe on this question. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let me get this set up over here, because I love big moments here. All right, here we go. Joe Nunziata, how do you define success?
Peace. That's it for me. If you are peaceful, that is the goal I have, because here's what happens. I work with a lot of people who are successful in the financial world, and they're very unhappy. And when I talk to them and we get into it, what ends up happening at the end is, what do you really want? And what they really want is to feel peaceful and at peace with themselves. Because it's amazing that I'll meet people that are incredibly successful, hundreds of millions of dollars, unbelievable lifestyles, companies, employees, families, everything. They get up in the morning and they're not at peace. So my answer is to be at peace is the greatest gift you can ever have.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. And here's a cool thing. A cool fact is I've been doing this show for over a year now, as we talk right now on this show tonight. And no two people have answered it exactly the same.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I'm surprised, to be honest. I've had a lot of guest speakers on here. And the other cool thing is it's never money centric.
Yeah, no.
In that, and you're like, yeah, it's obvious. It's not, because you're a vet.
I've been there. Well, I've met these people, and I know
Yes.
these people, and I've been around these people. So, and I know that a lot of them actually. It's interesting when people will say, I got to this place that I never thought I'd get to, and I'm still unhappy. So it just shows you, which again goes back to anything in the external world is not the only thing that's going to make you happy is loving yourself. So we have to learn to love ourselves. That's our job. That's really what we're here to do in our lifetime here in physical form, which is to learn to love ourselves and get back to that happy place which is where we came from. We came from a place of pure love. We came here to have this physical experience and emotions and problems and issues and death and all these ups and downs that we've come to have. But the real journey is, I always use the Wizard of Oz, because like Dorothy goes on the whole journey and she's trying to get, find different things, and she meets friends and good guys and bad guys. And her whole journey is about, I need the wizard to get me home and get me what I need. And the moral of the movie in the end is when the good witch comes down and says, you had the power all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's us. We have the power. We all do. The key is knowing you have it.
Mm.
No one outside of you will make you happy, will make you peaceful, will make you feel fulfilled. So until you get to that space in your life where you realize it's about me getting myself there, that is the greatest gift that you could give yourself, and understand, because it takes the pressure off everybody else in your life. And it also turns it all to you to say, I'm going to be at the highest level of energy and vibration when I realize that it's all about me learning to love myself. It sounds simple, but it's as you know, it's a very challenging journey.
Yeah, and it's all about choice. We all have the choices to make. You can either decide to like and love yourself or not, or you can decide to not take care of yourself physically or mentally, or you can decide to. And where we are today is a direct result of our choices we made. And so what Joe is explaining is you have a way to right your ship very quickly if you're open to it. And Joe's the man to go to. So before we sign off for the evening, Joe, I also heard from a little birdie that you had something that you would like to offer our guests who are watching.
Yeah, so I got a couple of things. I have a free download if you'd like. I have an ebook and an audio, which is at stopchasingbusiness.com. So if you go to that website, you'll get my free ebook, which is Stop Chasing Business, and an audio, which is about using these principles in business and being successful. And if anyone's interested in a 20-minute telephone strategy session, just if you're interested in moving forward and you'd like to have a conversation, you can email me at joe@joenunz.com and just say you were on the Mind Body Business Show and I made you that offer, because I don't make that offer unless it's either a show or something that I'm doing or an event. So just please put that in your subject line and I will get back to you. We'll schedule a call. And there is your Brian pulled up the free ebook and audio, which you can get an instant download right now.
That was a big test. I was trying to type real fast, figure out.
You did a good job.
And yeah, email so I can put up the last part of that because I have that already done.
Right. So just joe@joenunz.com and that'll go right to me and I'll see that and get back to you as soon as I can to schedule a time.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for all those wonderful gifts. And you also are on Facebook as well. I noticed, had that up a little earlier. So go ahead and follow and friend Joe if you want to learn more about him, especially the energy work he does. That can probably give you the most result immediately moving forward, because once you have that, then the rest of your life opens up like a beautiful flower. And definitely hit up Joe and say, hey, I would love to talk to you. You can see he is a heartfelt individual. He loves empowering people. I love that. I'm going to just beat that into my own brain and make sure I have it always.
When you go to my site, that's my line. So you'll see my tagline is your guide to self-empowerment. So that is what I do.
I love it. Well, Joe, I hate that things have to come to an end, but all good things do have to come to an end at some point. So unfortunately, that is true for us right now. And I appreciate you for coming on and spending over an hour with myself and those who are watching and listening, those that watch and listen live, and those that are going to watch later and listen to the podcast on 25 different platforms. You're going to be everywhere, my man. And
I'm excited.
Yeah. And even Roku and Amazon Fire TV.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. We got
that is awesome
channel. It's actually playing right now on a monitor on my wall.
Oh, okay.
So thank you so much. Any last parting words of advice before we say so long to all the good people?
So, Brian, thank you so much for what you're doing and helping the world become a better place. And, every day, I'll give you my last little tip that I always give everybody every day, because all changes that occur for us take time. So when you see a big change, it's the result of many small adjustments. So I look at it this way. I have 365 days. This is a leap year. You actually have an extra day. Every single day, if you make one small positive adjustment, by the end of the year, think about the momentum you've built, but that will only happen when you are consistent. So do that every day and watch what happens.
I love it. Thank you once again, Joe. And
thank you so much.
On behalf of Mr. Joe Nunziata, I am Brian Kelly, and we appreciate you for coming on, and we will see you on the next edition of the Mind Body Business Show. Until then, be blessed, everyone. So long for now.
Thank you for watching and listening. This has been the Mind Body Business Show with Brian Kelly.